When a major storm hits the Orlando area while you're on a Disney World vacation, what do? How do you get refunds on your trip? Where do you shelter in place? Which items are you going to need to have on hand, and which ones aren't going to do you a lick of good? We're covering everything you need to know about those tropical storms today on DFB Guide. Hey everybody, it's AJ for Disney Food Blog. Okay, hurricane season is upon us, and while a tropical storm more than likely won't hit at the exact same time you're trying to vacation in the Orlando area, the odds are not impossible. In fact, there have been a handful of instances when the DFB team and I have had to experience these storms during our Disney World trips. So the information we're hitting you with today is stuff we've also experienced firsthand. Our goal with today's video isn't to scare you out of a Disney World trip, but to make sure you feel prepared for any bouts of severe weather you might possibly run into while you're in the Orlando area. We're going to be breaking down the video today into 3 important chunks: what to know before you go, what to know while you're on property, and what to know about severe weather when the parks aren't closed. All right, let's talk about before you go to Disney World. This is when you're constantly refreshing that weather app and seeing what the cone is doing, right? So hurricane season is a longer time span than you might think. Officially, the season kicks off on June 1st and lasts until November 30th, so basically all of summer and fall. Now, this doesn't automatically mean you're in the clear from all major Orlando storms if you're planning a winter or spring vacation instead, nor does it mean you're sure to have to brace yourself for a major storm if your trip does fall into hurricane season. It just means there's more of a potential of a hurricane happening around this time of year as opposed to other times of the year, with the bulk of the hurricane action usually happening throughout the months of August to October. On average, the entire hurricane season usually sees around 6 hurricanes, which we'll talk more about what that specifically means in just a second. But once again, this isn't a guaranteed number to look out for. Some years we've got more storm action and some less. For 2023, however, we may see an uptick in those tropical storms. According to AccuWeather, there should be between 11 to 15 tropical storms for the 2023 hurricane season. 4 to 8 of them are predicted to reach hurricane strength, and 1 to 3 are expected to achieve major hurricane status. Now, those numbers can seem pretty significant when you first hear about them, but let's talk about how they'll actually impact your upcoming trip. How big a concern are these hurricanes for the Orlando area? Well, it depends. Hurricanes rarely hit Central Florida full on. They have to make landfall somewhere, right? But they can still wreak havoc even a day after they make landfall. In the past 10 years, between 2013 and 2023, only 4 hurricanes have been strong enough to close down the Disney World theme parks. In 2016, Hurricane Matthew made the parks close at 5 p.m. on October 6th, and they remained closed the following day. In 2017, Hurricane Irma started at 9 p.m. on September 9th and kept the parks closed through September 11th. In 2019, Hurricane Dorian was a bit touch and go there around September 3rd, while most of the parks closed at 3 p.m. that day. Epcot stayed open till 7 after the storm started to change its course. Since Dorian continued to move away from the Central Florida area, the parks were able to reopen the following day. And then there was last year's Hurricane Ian, which forced the parks to close between September 28th and 29th, but they reopened just in time for Epcot's 40th year anniversary. So what should we take away from these stats? First, major hurricanes are few and far between, but they do happen, and it's important to stay safe and indoors when they hit. Second, since Orlando is in Central Florida, even these stronger hurricanes haven't been forceful enough to do permanent damage on the parks. But again, the parks will close to make sure guests and cast members stay safe. Third, when an average level tropical storm hits, usually Disney will remain open in some sort of capacity regardless, so the storm has to be at major hurricane level to actually fully shut down the parks. And fourth, the hurricane impact doesn't keep these parks closed for long and usually only keeps them down for a day or 2. So as we're planning, let's talk about hotels. Booking a Disney World hotel could be one of the best things you do when a hurricane is threatening the area. All of the Disney-owned hotels are equipped to weather these types of storms. Not only do they provide guests with food and sturdy shelters and entertainment, but they also have backup generators just in case the power goes out, which it probably will. That being said, some resorts are better suited for braving out the hurricanes than others. For example, several of the deluxe resorts like Contemporary and Yacht and Beach Club have rooms with doors that lead to an indoor hallway. These indoor hallways have direct access to the lobbies and shops from most rooms. However, not every deluxe hotel provides that level of convenience. Rooms like the bungalows at the Polynesian Village and the tree houses at Saratoga Springs require extra uncovered walking to get back to those common areas. So if you were wanting to splurge on a deluxe resort in the first place, you may be better off choosing one that has those nice and dry indoor hallways right to the main dining and shopping areas. Meanwhile, most value and moderate resorts like the All-Stars and Caribbean Beach are massive and sprawl across the property, which can make things difficult when you're trying to get something to eat in the middle of a monsoon. These resorts could also have minimal to no covering between your room and the lobby, with doors that lead to an outside pathway instead of leading into an indoor hallway. That being said, if you book a value family suite over at Disney's Art of Animation or All-Star Music, then you'll have direct access to a kitchenette, at least, like a microwave. And at All-Star Music, you have a relatively large kitchen area, giving you the choice to prep your own food and cut down on your trips across the resort in the middle of the storm. Now it's time to talk cancellation policies. I know you don't want to think about canceling your trip when you've worked so hard to plan it in the first place, but sometimes that's the last resort you've got to choose to make sure you're not about to lose hundreds of dollars on a vacation you didn't even get to experience. When it comes to cancellation policies, familiarize yourself with them for all legs of your trip. This includes flights and park tickets, hotels, rental cars, shuttles, restaurants, even special experiences like Savi's Workshop and Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique. According to the Disney World website, if a hurricane warning is issued by the National Hurricane Center for the Orlando area or for your place of residence within 7 days of your scheduled arrival date, you may call in advance to reschedule or cancel your Walt Disney Travel Company Disney Resort Hotel package, and most room-only reservations booked directly with Disney without any cancellation or change fees imposed by Disney. So you get that 7-day leeway period there. That being said, not all cancellation policies are going to fall under that specific umbrella, which is why you're going to have to do some extra research to find out what cancellation timeframes apply to what sections of your trip. This is another reason why having a reliable travel agent like Small World Vacations, who we work with, can be such a lifesaver. Those travel agents aren't just a free vacation planning service. They're also a group of Disney experts who want to make sure you stress as little as possible over your vacation planning, even when it comes to the rescheduling and cancellations. Instead of sitting on the phone for hours with Disney trying to get through to reschedule your trip, the folks at Small World Vacations will make the phone calls, the reservations, the cancellations, and all other planning legwork for you. If you're interested in a free quote with them, we'll link the info for you down in the description. Now, it's great that Disney will work with you to cancel or reschedule your trip when it comes to hurricanes, but you still may be bound to cancellation fees and other cancellation rules when it comes to non-Disney vacation purchases like flights and non-Disney hotel rooms, rental cars, etc. If you're traveling during hurricane season, even if you don't think a hurricane's going to sneak up on you, it still might make sense for you to grab some trip insurance for your flights and any other bookings just in case. Disney offers its very own travel insurance for an extra fee for vacation packages booked through their website. Just make sure you read the fine print before you purchase, though. While the insurance itself isn't too bad, a flat rate of $82.50 per adult and $6 per kid, the coverage isn't as great as it might be with other insurance companies, especially if you're dealing with other instances aside from weather cancellations, like coverage for lost baggage at airports. Disney's insurance only covers up to $2,000 and could still put you out $1,000 or so if you just so happen to have lost your laptop or pricey camera equipment in that luggage too. However, Disney's insurance does cover theme park tickets for their vacation packages, which can be a big deal since otherwise tickets are non-refundable. Do some shopping around and figure out which travel insurance will work best for your specific trip. And don't forget to write down and screenshot all of your plans and confirmation numbers. You want to keep them close by, just in case you need to cancel or reschedule one or all of them. And in case you're unable to access one of your devices, it's good to have them in hard copy form too. Okay, so you know all the cancellation fees, you've got all the stuff understood, but now it's time to stay alert. Remember how I said refreshing that app over and over again? This is that part of this video. It's hard to make a big decision of whether you should bite the bullet and attempt your vacation despite the potential hurricane impact or cancel it outright and not worry about navigating it at all. But whether you're still back home juggling your options or you're already in the Orlando area, it's important to have a trusted way to get information about the storms so you can make those important decisions based on what you're seeing from the forecast in real time. That's why we always have those minute-by-minute weather apps ready and downloaded on our phones all year long. While daily or hour-by-hour forecasts might help with planning things like what outfit to wear for the day, a minute-by-minute weather app is key for keeping track of when severe weather is expected to hit. We usually turn to AccuWeather, which has a pretty solid track record of letting us know what's going on in the clouds currently, as well as predicting future conditions. And lo and behold, AccuWeather has a hurricane tracker on its app, so you never have to leave your vacation up to chance. Alright, so what's going to happen when you're already on property and a hurricane cone tilts toward the Orlando area? This has happened to our team a couple of times. Back in 2019, when Hurricane Dorian was threatening the area, one of our team members and her friends were in Disney's Animal Kingdom waiting in line for Flight of Passage when they got notification from their flight saying that our flight was going to be canceled 2 days from now in preparation for the storm. Now, airports do try to give you a heads up on cancellations when they can, especially with major hurricane action in the area. But they were still taken aback that they got the announcement 2 days before anything actually happened, since there was still a chance the hurricane would go around them entirely. Regardless, they took a deep breath, rescheduled their flight, and just added a day to their trip once they got back to the lobby of the hotel. They were staying at Port Orleans Riverside at the time, and because the parks hadn't closed up, they were still able to rebook an extra night's stay. Was it pricey? Yes. But they knew if the storm were to get bad and tilt more toward Orlando, that the resort was the safest place they could possibly be, and a lot of other people would try to book as well, so you might as well book that room as soon as you can. They spent the next couple of days in the parks and around the resort pool, having a great time with great weather, aside from the typical 15-minute afternoon rainstorm. But then the last night of their trip came and their flight was canceled again. So, moral of the story. First, make sure you've got your airline's app downloaded so that you can receive any updates about your flights as soon as they happen. Your airline should give you the chance to reschedule for a different flight, and the app will help you be able to do that without having to be on the phone for literal hours trying to get things switched over. Just a note that when it comes to hurricane activity, those airline folks don't mess around. Everyone's safety is their number one priority, so even if nothing actually happens with the storm, and it would have been okay for you to fly without the need of a cancellation, it's way better to be safe than sorry. Okay, second thing to take away from this story. If a storm threat is bad enough, it won't just be your flight that cancels, it might be the whole airport. In the case of Hurricane Dorian, the Orlando airport stayed open, though it was very eerily quiet, and our team member was able to get a rental car after their flight was canceled the second time, so they just road tripped back home. Do we recommend this? Not really. In their case, the weather was fairly clear and they'd be driving away from any impact that could still happen, but rental cars aren't always going to be readily available during these kind of storms, especially if major flooding is happening on the roads. So contact rental companies ahead of time if you're wanting to find a car rental, just to see if one's still available before you arrive. That way you don't travel all the way over to Orlando Airport just to come up empty-handed. Now, remember, there is a rental car location on Disney World property at the Car Care Center, so you can always go there and see if you can rent a car as well. Now, when it came to Hurricane Ian, the Orlando airport did shut down. They closed Wednesday, September 28th, and didn't resume operations until Friday. During that time, the Orlando airport encouraged all passengers who were trying to reschedule flights to contact their airlines directly. So again, having your airline's app already downloaded is going to save you lots of time. And the third takeaway from this, when airlines reopen post-storm, it can be an absolute mess, just chaos with passengers who are desperate to get back home as soon as possible. This is when having TSA PreCheck can come in handy. TSA PreCheck is essentially a lightning lane through security. You get to keep your shoes on, keep everything in your bags, and breeze right on through, and usually the queue lines are shorter. All you have to do is go online to the TSA website and apply for pre-approval. You'll then book an interview where you'll need to provide a valid photo ID and proof of citizenship. Currently, the application fee is $78, but this will cover your enrollment for the next 5 years. You can also enroll at Orlando Airport without reserving an appointment, and the process takes about 5 minutes or less. The hours for MCO enrollment are really limited between Monday and Friday, 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. But if you get to the airport early and have time to complete an application here, this might be a better option for you. Just remember, it takes 3 to 5 days to be approved, so after you apply for TSA PreCheck, you won't be able to use it on the spot. So if you're wanting to use TSA PreCheck for your upcoming Orlando trip, you'll still want to apply online at least a week or two in advance, just to make sure you have it. Or you can apply for the TSA PreCheck at the Orlando Airport and know you'll be good to go for all your future trips. Aside from TSA PreCheck, You can also reserve a time slot to go through security at Orlando Airport. The reservation lane allows you to make a reservation, show up at that time, scan in, and go through an exclusive and shorter lane. Again, much like a lightning lane, and this one is free to use. The reservation lane is available on both MCO checkpoints from 5 a.m. to 11 a.m. You can reserve your spot at reserve.clearme.com. But if you're just planning on braving the security line masses, I'd recommend downloading the Orlando Airport app. This app will fill you in on current security check wait times and save your parking location, see the latest airport updates, and track down dining, shopping, and other amenities just in case you wind up with a whole lot of time to kill. Also, I will say the Orlando Airport's Twitter account is not only just hilariously funny, but also pretty responsive. So if you have a question, you can tweet at them and they should be able to respond. Now, let's backtrack a little bit. You're still in Orlando. The hurricane cone is tilting your way. What do you do now, right? Let's talk about hotel and extending your stay. I mentioned in the last point how our DFB team member extended their stay once they got back to Port Orleans Riverside. So take that to heart. When Disney World announces that the parks are closing due to hurricane activity, or if there's a warning sweeping across the Orlando area, it is not just out-of-town guests who are going to be extending their stay. Locals will be booking up rooms too, just to hunker down somewhere safe with a generator and electricity and water for the next few days. If you get to Orlando and the weather's starting to look real iffy on the AccuWeather app, don't wait to extend your stay. Go to the front lobby of your resort and tack on a few more days just as soon as you can, because again, it's better to be safe than without a room entirely. Now, I say go to the front lobby of your resort to extend your stay rather than book extra days online for a reason. If there's high traffic on the website for extended bookings, then you may find yourself coming up high and dry. But if you talk about your situation face-to-face with a cast member at the front lobby, they'll do everything in their power to find you a place to stay for longer, even if that means you'll have to do a split stay and transfer to another resort before the storm hits. Worst comes to worst, cast members in the front lobby can put you on a waiting list for a room. That way, if someone were to cancel, they can reach out to you ASAP if that availability were to pop up later on. All right, so you've made the decision to go to Disney World despite it being hurricane season. But alas, a storm does pop up while you are on property. Okay, no problem. We've got you covered. So you're bunkered into your hotel room for the next day or so. That's great, but what are you going to do about food? Disney doesn't want you to go hungry, so although a handful of restaurants will close down during this time, quick service and food courts and restaurants with direct lobby access will more than likely remain open. That being said, these restaurants get packed, and they may not be operating like they normally do since they'll be running on limited supplies and cast members. That's why many hotel restaurants will offer hurricane meal kits or prepackaged meals and snacks from dining locations. These meal kits usually include picnic-like options like sandwiches and chips and fruit, nothing too fancy. Normally, these kits range between $8 and $10 for adults and $6 to $7 for kids, and you'll start to see them pop up on mobile order if a hurricane is coming through. Now, if you want to avoid the Disney Resort restaurants and crowds altogether, then I definitely recommend stocking up on snacks and non-perishable items before the storm hits. Even on Disney's sunniest days, I still recommend packing snacks that you get from the grocery stores instead of paying a pretty penny on food every time you get the munchies in the parks. But it's even more important to have these snacks on hand when there's a storm brewing. This also goes for basic essentials and entertainment options. Again, if your room is inside the same building as the lobby, restaurants, and gift shops, you'll still have access to some supplies that you can buy during the storm if need be, like over-the-counter medications, contact solution, toothpaste, diapers, shaving cream, deodorant, nail clippers, pacifiers, floss, batteries, chargers, bottle openers, and earplugs. But if you're not in close quarters to the gift shops, then you'll need to make sure you're stocking up on things you need even more carefully, and probably not just at the Disney-owned stores since they'll upcharge you for these essentials. Many folks like to turn toward grocery delivery services like Instacart to get food and extra supplies delivered to the lobby of their hotel beforehand, without having to leave the Disney bubble and gather them themselves. However, please note what we discovered during Hurricane Ian in Orlando is that these delivery services are slammed right before the storms come in. So there is the potential that if you wait too long to place your order, you may not get your items in time before the hurricane hits. Meaning it may be easier for you to just brave the madness of the nearby big box or drugstores and pick out those items yourself. So plan ahead and stock up with plenty of time. Now, the next thing I want to share with you is the Rideout Crew. The Rideout Crew sounds like a superhero group name, right? And in a way, that's exactly what they are. It's a bunch of superheroes. There's a select group of cast members who specifically volunteered to help out in emergency situations, like when a hurricane is approaching. These cast members make sure that guests and other cast members evacuate the parks quickly and safely, and they also stay on the resort grounds for the entirety of the storm to ensure that guests are staying safe and fed and entertained. They're not called the Rideout Crew for nothing. Disney does make sure that the Rideout Crew is taken care of while they're on duty by providing them with meals and shelters on site, but this group works really strenuous hours during this stretch of time, and we're all super appreciative of them. If a Rideout Crew member is giving you instructions when it comes to park evacuations or where to pick up meal kits or anything else that's going to make sure your family is safe and taken care of, and others are safe and taken care of, then listen to them. I know a hurricane can be a stressful time. It's stressful for everyone. But just keep in mind that trying to argue with these cast members or give them a hard time about how things are being handled isn't going to help anything. Keep your head on your shoulders, discuss concerns with these cast members, but also remember that they're more than likely exhausted and doing their best to keep everyone as happy and safe as they can. Also, when you are on property and a storm is coming through, set your expectations. After a couple of days of hunkering down in your hotel room, getting the all-clear news that the storm's finally passed over is such a relief, and it's even more exciting when you hear that the parks will be back in operation again. That being said, on the day after the parks open, post-hurricane and tropical storm, don't expect everything to be normal. Sure, crowd levels will be way down, which is already abnormal in and out of itself, but several rides and shows and attractions might have to remain closed, despite the parks being back in business. On the day after Hurricane Ian last year, we stepped into Disney's Animal Kingdom only to be greeted by only half an operating park. Expedition Everest was down, Kilimanjaro Safaris was down, the Wildlife Express train was down, Kali River Rapids was definitely down. And it all had to do with hurricane damage. It was nothing major that Animal Kingdom couldn't get cleaned up in a day or two, but it was still enough disarray and impact that cast members needed some extra time to clear those areas, making sure the animals were doing okay, and do some tinkering on the outdoor rides to get them back into shipshape. And that meant we saw a lot of clap boxes out that day, which is basically a taped off square on the ground that has magical properties. And by magical properties, I mean when a guest steps in it, cast members clap, and when a guest steps out of it, the applause stops. It's a great temporary distraction Disney uses to keep you from being so bummed out by how many rides aren't operational that day. Because receiving applause just feels good, even if it's unwarranted. Then again, on the first day of operations after Hurricane Ian, Epcot, which was mostly indoors attractions, was pretty much back to its normal self, aside from a few missing elements that we only noticed because, well, we're there every single day. All this to say, if you're planning on resuming your vacation immediately after the storm passes on by, there's a good chance that the itinerary you originally made might have to have some adjustments or be cut down. Just make sure that you not only give your kids a pep talk about what to expect, but give yourself one of those pep talks in the mirror too, and get out there and make the most of the time you've got left on vacation when the crowds are low. Okay, you're going to want to have these items on hand at all times if you are heading to Disney World during a potential storm. You might already have your suitcase and park bag all ready to go, but if there's any sort of hurricane or tropical storm threat that's lingering out there in the Atlantic, you're not going to want to leave these 3 items behind. First, a portable charger. Bringing a portable charger is always something we recommend you do just because you're going to be spending a lot of time using your phone in the parks. But it's even more important to make sure you bring one when you're traveling during a stormy season, just in case you end up losing electricity wherever you're staying. While it's unlikely that any Disney resort would lose power due to those backup generators I mentioned, if you're staying at a non-Disney hotel, Airbnb, or other accommodations, then this handy little device can keep your phone powered so you can stay updated on the weather reports and safety recommendations. Next on the list, autograph books. Okay, this is a weird one to throw in the mix, but hear me out. Even when the parks are closed for the weather, cast members still try to bring some magic inside the resorts. The Rideout Crew will provide family fun activities like movie nights and dance parties and trivia games, and the arcades may even open up and be free to play. But one of the best things that can happen is when the Rideout Crew surprises guests with meet and greets and potentially rare character appearances right there in the lobby. If you just so happen to see one of your favorite rare or not so rare characters strolling through the hotel during this time, it could be your chance to get an autograph that you may not have otherwise gotten on a non-hurricane day. And a tablet. So despite the Rideout Crew's very best efforts to keep kids entertained when the park entertainment has been suspended, Your younger party members could get antsy after a few days of being cooped up in a hotel, especially so if they're at a non-Disney hotel where no extra entertainment is being provided. That's when it's time to pull out the iPads and the tablets and let your kids partake in a little extra screen time than you'd normally allow during vacation, because you gotta pass the time somehow. A tablet itself is pretty easily transportable and won't take up much space in a carry-on. Before your trip, make sure to download some movies and shows so they're accessible even if you lose internet. Alright, so what happens when there is severe weather when the parks aren't closed? So this is when you get a tropical storm or you get a severe weather warning for severe thunderstorms, something like that. Not something that's going to close the parks, but something that can be seriously detrimental to a park day. Well, here are some tips for when that happens, because it happens pretty regularly. First up, you're going to seek sanctuary. A little rainstorm may not be enough to stop you in the parks, but a big rainstorm certainly can. If you're caught in one of those torrential downpours, the kind where you can barely see your hand when it's only inches away from your nose, then you're going to want to seek sanctuary ASAP to wait things out. If there's the potential that the rain will pass on fairly soon, then taking cover in a nearby gift shop might not be a bad idea. And if you're seeing major rain on the AccuWeather app for the next half hour or so, you might want to find an indoor ride to stand in line for. No, don't get in line for any outdoor coasters or experiences, since they'll be down for the count for a good long while. But you can stand in line for indoor experiences with extensive indoor queues like Star Tours in Hollywood Studios, Dinosaur in Animal Kingdom, Mickey's PhilharMagic in Magic Kingdom, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure in Epcot, and so many other Disney park attractions that won't have you outside and braving the elements. Even if their lines are projected as a little longer than you would have liked, waiting in these queues still accomplishes two things. One, it keeps you dry. And two, it still helps you accomplish those must-do rides on your Disney itinerary. Now, even if it's not currently storming hardcore when you get in line for an outdoor coaster, do not get in line if your weather app is telling you a storm will be rolling in within the next couple hours. Because again, what could end up happening is you get in a long line for an outdoor ride, and just before you're able to board, the ride will have to shut down until the storm passes, and that's a major time suck out of your Disney day. And what if the rain keeps falling down with no end in sight? Well, then you might want to slip into an indoor quick service restaurant for a bite to eat and some much needed relaxation. But here's the thing, you're not going to be the only person with this idea. Quick services can and will get completely packed during the storms. So if you look on your AccuWeather app and notice that the weather's going to be looking real rough by the afternoon, then make sure you mobile order your quick service meal in advance on the My Disney Experience app and set your pickup time for when the storm's predicted to hit. That way, when the dark clouds start rolling in, you can head straight to that quick service location, skip the massive line, and pick up your meal that you've already pre-ordered. Now, what about transportation? Even if you're not coming face to face with a major hurricane, many of Disney's transportation services won't be available for you to use when heavy rain or lightning is in the area. Disney's boats and Skyliner system will shut down until the coast is clear again, which is great because safety is more important than convenience, but that still means you're probably going to have to figure out a plan B to get back to your hotel room if you were relying on either of those transportation methods to get you from place to place. More often than not, Disney will redirect you to their complimentary shuttle services during this time, which may not be your first choice when it comes to transportation, but hey, it'll get you back to your room and it'll do it for free. But hold on, what if you drove to the parks and the rain is still coming down in sheets? Well, if you're in a situation where you don't feel comfortable driving back to your hotel room, track down one of the security cars patrolling the parking lots and let them know about your concerns. From there, they'll either be able to get you set up to where you can pick up your car the next morning without being ticketed, or they'll be able to guide you safely over to a different area if they still need you to move your car that night. From there, you can still hop aboard one of the Disney buses, or you can order a rideshare like Uber or Lyft if you're staying off property. But remember, in storms like that, those rideshares are going to take a while. Now, let's do a quick overview of the pros and cons of poncho life, right? What do you do when the storms are just relentless, but you still want to ride some rides? Okay, some people swear by their ponchos and rely on those plastic things to help keep them dry, or at the very least, not completely drenched through. I have purchased so many ponchos in my life, I could probably build a giant inflatable bounce house out of them. But something to remember, when you wear a poncho in the rain, it starts off fine and dandy. It's dry, you put it on, and it does its job. But after you take your poncho off, that's when the problems begin, because now you gotta wad it up to get it to fit in your bag, and it's all wet, and it's gonna be soaking other things that are also in your bag. And when you pull it back out of your bag, the poncho's still all wet. Now, I'm forced to put on this damp trash bag and pretend like I am not completely grossed out. Will the poncho still keep me more dry than if I were not to have one at all? Probably. But I always feel like they're more of a hassle than they're worth. Now, ponchos can be great to have on hand as an extra layer of protection, especially when you're wearing a backpack around the park. You'll also be able to pick up a pack of fairly cheap ones at your local drugstore or big box store back home, so you can avoid paying Disney's prices like I do all the time for a very similar poncho style, just with Walt Disney World printed across the back. But don't expect them to keep you 100% dry, especially when you accidentally step into those big old puddles or the rain starts coming down in sideways sheets. A big gust of wind could also threaten to blow your hood back, which is why wearing a quick dry hat might come in handy. So speaking of rain gear, the DFB team has to test out rain gear a lot because it rains in Disney. A lot. So here are some essential rain gear items our reporters like to have on hand when the weather starts to get iffy. First, a compact umbrella. You'll definitely want an umbrella so you can keep walking around in the parks instead of taking cover every few steps. Just remember that umbrellas do trigger the security scanners at the front of the park, so make sure you pull them out of your park bag before you walk through the scanners so security cast members will know what's setting the systems off. These are usually good and useful if there's just a little sprinkle or the storm is just very short. They're much easier to take out and put up than putting on a whole poncho and then taking it all off again. Second, waterproof shoes. You're going to want to ditch the sneakers for something a little less soggy. During those rainy seasons, opt for a waterproof shoe that you can still wear all day long. Crocs can be a good pick for flood-like weather, except they're kind of slippery. But something I will often rely on is a good pair of well-worn Tevas or other kind of athletic sandal that's made for hiking and storms anyway, and they dry really, really fast. And they have a back strap so they stay on your foot. Don't wear the flip-flops in the rain, y'all. Next, the waterproof backpacks. On the days when you'll actually be in the parks while it's raining, we recommend using a waterproof park bag to protect your gadgets and gizmos. Even if you're someone who usually relies on just your pockets to keep hold of the basics, we still recommend you switch over to the park bag side so that your items have more coverage. There's a Turnway waterproof sling bag on Amazon right now that the team's been raving about lately. It isn't too big or bulky, but it will fit the necessities while leaving room for some extra souvenirs you might pick up along the way. And last but not least, our good friend the Ziploc baggie. That can doubly protect your electronics from the rain. Even though a waterproof bag should get the job done, you can never be too careful. Oh, and don't forget about your stroller. I can't tell you how awful it was when I learned my lesson that if you go into a restaurant and it pours down raining and you go out and you didn't cover your stroller, you now have a completely sopping wet stroller that your baby has to sit in the rest of the day. It is a nightmare. So having a rain cover for your stroller is an absolute must. There are really nice and sturdy stroller rain covers on Amazon and in big box stores that should do the trick for around $13. And the material is super breathable and see-through, so baby doesn't have to miss a thing. But I also used to invest in one of those really thick plastic covers that I put on the stroller when we were in a ride or in a restaurant. So I wouldn't put my kid under a thick plastic cover, don't worry. But the stroller itself stayed very dry under that when he was not in it. Now, one final thought. It is hard not to be totally disheartened when days of your dream vacation are suddenly washed away by that one thing you can't control. But remember, staying safe, remaining calm, finding that silver lining through it all are the key things that'll help you and your family ride out these storms. Just make sure you're keeping an eye on the weather forecast ahead of your trip so you're not unprepared or caught off guard by any sudden tropical storm announcements. And as always, keep checking back here with the DFB team. We'll continue to give you the latest updates from the Disney bubble. Thanks for listening, everyone, and thanks for watching. Please drop your hurricane stories and your hurricane tips down in the comments below. As always, this is AJ for Disney Food Blog, and we'll see you real soon.